What's going on, my fellow Jedi and Padawans? Welcome back to another Jedi gaming video. Thank you guys so much for coming back to the channel, and if you guys are new, welcome. Today we're going to be going over everything inside of the 0-hour mission, with going through the normal version to start us out, all the secret puzzles inside of there for our upgraded Intrinsic Trait, the first schematic to our ship, as well as in the legendary version, we are able to access our second perk, actually, with rapid hit, which is actually super nice. I'm really looking forward to rewind rounds on this thing, but we are going to cover everything in a specific order, so we'll kind of cover that first as an overview. All right, so as an overview for unlocking everything for this weapon in the first week, you do have to go through and just complete the exotic mission first, the 0-hour in general on that normal mode, before you can even do the puzzles for the ship or that first upgrade for the intrinsic trait. So to start us off with that, you have to go to our good 801 and grab the Assert Protection quest, which requires you to complete that 0-hour on normal, which you will be rewarded that Outbreak Perfected. You get the schematic at the end of the mission. We go back to 801 and she will actually give you your craftable version of the Outbreak Perfected, or the Redbirder version, which you just turn into that crafted version. So for the normal version that we go through first, which we will actually go through, like I said, we're going to go through this normal version first. You can go back into the normal version again to get the next two puzzles, or the first puzzle, I should say, for the ship and that intrinsic trait, and then the legendary version has to be done for our first actual upgraded perk with rapid hit and outlaw, those kind of perks. So the normal version of the outbreak right here with 0-hour, we load into the mission and it is timed, so you will have to complete the normal version in 40 minutes and the legendary version in about 20, so be cautious of your time. Definitely you're going to have to split up some of the puzzles if you are trying to go through and do it all in legendary. Makes it very challenging, so I would do the second puzzle inside of the normal version. But when we start out, we load in, we get to say hi to Mithrax just like in the old days. Then we start making our way through these vents to our first open area, where we are going to be facing a bunch of these fallen right here, a bunch of different shields, so make sure that your teammates have on a variety of shield breaking weapons, void, solar, as well as arc. They are spread quite a bit, but there is a lot of arc damage going on and sniper damage going on, in my opinion, with this activity, so I would throw on that double arc protection on our chest piece, as well as the sniper protection for at least the normal version. Even in the legendary version, I kept it the same. For the legendary, it is a 25% increase to void damage, which doesn't really happen until the boss room, and you can avoid it pretty easily, so I would just keep with that arc damage and sniper damage. After you defeat that first room, it kind of points you in one slow direction around this area through the old tower where we used to be right here, where we have to defeat all of these fallen right here, and there will be a big brig, which obviously wasn't in the original 0-hour, so you will have to deal with that, but there will be a various amount of shields, as well as those sniper shanks, the big shanks that we have, so be sure to play it cautious. In here, it's not like you wipe and go back to orbit, but a lot of these things do hit pretty hard. Like I said, make sure you got that arc and sniper resistance on. But after we defeat all of the fallen and that break in this open area, this is where that first puzzle will be, but we will deal with that after we beat this mission. You make your way around the outside of the tower right here, through the rubble, up into this little tunnel right here, and you will actually enter the hangar bay of the tower ruins, where there will be a bunch of different enemies inside it here, with a spider walker take a bunch of snipers, as well as a couple different servitors. So it is a good room to take some time in, because of those servitors. They do make everybody else invincible, so try to focus on those first, then you can clear out the fallen with ease, especially some of those dregs, etc., stuff like that in the normal version, where then you will have to deal with that spider tank, but it is just a normal red bar, nothing too crazy about it. Shoot off of its legs to get that spot exposed in its back, and then deal the damage in its neck, just like the AT-AT from the good old Star Wars. So once you clear the hangar bay area right here, we move on to a little bit more of traversing the old tower before we get into some jumping puzzles puzzles, we deal with more enemies on our way. It is just a bunch of fallen like normal. It is a pretty linear path, so you don't really have to worry about directions right here. You just make your way, like I said, through the old tower, dealing with enemies as we go, and then we finally make it through into our tower watch, where we have the last little bit of enemies to deal with before our jumping puzzle actually begins. So it is a little bit of a traverse through this area. We make it to this nice elevator shaft where we jump down, and the puzzle really kind of starts for jumping around through these passages. So in the normal version, there is a front of the ship, there is a passage right here where you go down into it, and you will find the continuation of the little ducts that you actually make your way through, with a couple different entrances for yellow versions where you shoot off those grates and actually enter into different vent sections. For the first little puzzle part right here, I choose the vent in the left side of the room, shoot off that panel kind of behind whatever is blocking the way, as well as when you climb inside of the vents, you go through, take a right at the first one, shoot off that yellow one, jump straight down, and that 6 little entrances you can see when you look down into them. The one that has the gray grate at the bottom is the one you go to, but the way that I showed you, if you just go straight down from that, is where we enter the correct path to continue on moving through the grates and the inner workings of the tower. Now, our next step is actually jumping on the outside of the tower. There will be these yellow cranes outside where you look like you don't have anywhere to go, but when you look down, there's a platform that you can actually jump to, but there will be some exploder shanks down here actually, so be careful of that. You can jump on the pipes right next to that opening, throw a grenade, something like that, and then you will be able to blow up those shanks. From that little platform, and now there really looks like there's nowhere to go, but if you look off the left side of that platform where the exploding shanks were, you will be able to see the very end of an antenna that is sticking out. You jump down on that antenna, and then you are able to continue your path, riding the wall until you reach this area where there'll be some sniper vandals around, so you gotta watch out for those, but you keep jumping until you make it to this little switch right here, where if you activate it, everybody behind you will have a little bit easier time with some additional platforms for you. Now, when you continue this jumping, you climb up a little bit higher and make your way to this spot where you jump into the ceiling of the tower, and we continue our a little sneaky way through the back end of the tower. Right here, we are climbing basically back up an elevator shaft where we get as high as we possibly can, and there will be 2 grates again with the yellow that you have to shoot off, so it's a little tricky to orientate yourself compared to what I was doing, but just know at the top there's 2 grates. One of them takes you to a dead end like I showed, and the other one, if you jump across to it, is the actual way that you have to go. So it is a little tricky and it takes a second, but once you go in there, we actually run into some more enemies that we will have to fight off. These enemies are actually in a fan area that are exploding shanks, which is ridiculous because they weren't there before, but you are actually able to stand up top, shoot down onto the fans, and get some of those defeats. Plus, when you are standing on the fans, if you use the little bars to walk out on, you can shoot between and shoot these shanks instead of having to worry about jumping down to the next level and figuring out a way to shoot the shanks so you don't explode and die on your way down. That is the easiest way that I found out, is if you go to the side on these little platforms, if you will, and shoot through the cracks to defeat the split shanks is the best way to go, and then you jump through the area that has the red so you can go down a little bit farther, where we come into a big chasm next, where you use these little light bars, if you will, around the sides to work your way to this opening where there will be your second actual switch, which you can activate, which will put platforms up there for your fellow guardians, which makes it a little bit easier to jump for them. we are approaching something that I know all the vets are dreading to go through, which is our bot Trevor. This boy is a menace running through this little maze where we have to activate 4 switches. There is one on the front left, one on the front right, and then the same one in the back left, one in the back right. So the way I do it usually is go through, do one side on the left, and then I cut through the middle, and then go to the other side and do the other 2. But you have to watch out for Trevor, the giant robot that is got his sights set out for you, is just on the Energizer Bunny demon right here. He has a red light in front of him so you can see where he is coming from, but you just have to dodge and make sure you aren't in an area that you can die from him. There are little platforms and stuff that you can jump around, as well as little hidey spots that you can jump into to hide from him, but you just have to activate all 4 of these switches while avoiding Trevor, as well as inside of the area when you are running around in the maze. There will be some electric fences that pop up that you can't go through, so that will hinder some of your ability because Trevor can go through them. But once you activate all 4 of those switches, you can make your way to the front of the room opposite from where you jump down. There will be little signs along the way pointing towards the exit, but you get to the exit and you come right here to these elevators where you activate, and it'll slowly go up, stopping on the way. Once it gets up to the top, you just have to jump up onto this bridge, but do not wait too long, because if you do, it'll fall all the way back down and you'll have to restart that. But we progress through the tunnels here, making it a little bit farther, where we drop down into the Vanguard vault, actually, where you won't know where to go because there isn't an actual door, but on one of the walls you will see a green triangle, actually, or a green diamond, I should say. That is a little secret passage. If you walk up to it, it'll actually open up the wall, and then there will be a grid actually on the floor that is a little puzzle by itself to get through. So in the normal version, when you enter the vault, there's actually a puzzle that shows, or one of these little areas that shows the solution to the puzzle on the wall with the path that you have to take on those white squares. Now, if you hit the wrong white square, you will immediately burst into flames and die if you are on or close to those white panels, so be careful about that. But if you take the right path, you get to this open room right here where there is a switch actually on the left hand side. You can hit that so nobody else behind you has to worry about getting through in the pattern. They can just run across any of those panels. This open room right here, there is a lot going on. This is where our second piece of the puzzle will be for that ship and intrinsic trait, which I will go over in a second here after we deal with the boss, because you do have to beat this, like I said, one time completely before you come back in to do the puzzles. But we are here at the boss after we jump down this little hole in the far right hand corner of the room. We come to where we can place a banner down where we actually start our boss fight. Now inside of this room there is going to be a bunch of different fallen enemies with a couple turrets, as well as our boss in there. So like I said, there is a lot of arc damage going on, plus some trip mines, as well as those arc mines as well. So be careful in this room. But once you start clearing out enemies, doing some damage on a boss, we will get a nice yellow bar servitor to pop up, which it helps if you defeat that as fast as you can, because it will be able to make things invincible. Plus there will be some shanks that spawn around it, which allow us to do more damage to the boss because he is moving around inside of the room as well. But once you do enough damage on the boss, keep rotating your position because he moves from each spot with different shielded shanks, as well as another yellow servitor will pop up at the back of the room where we actually dropped down at. So it is a little bit of a process to deal damage on these bosses with the enemies that keep spawning. But rockets were very good for us, as well as I went in and did it by myself with just my super. Mountaintop was really good. I had that supremacy as well from the last wish, which was slapping pretty hard with those rewind, as well as that kinetic tremors. So a couple different options to get this guy down. Normal, definitely pretty juicy to get him down and doesn't take too much damage. But once you get him far enough down, he will actually leave the area, where then on the left and the right podiums he will spawn spider tanks, which you would deal like earlier, shoot off their feet, defeat. Deal damage on the back to explode them. Once you defeat both of those spider tanks, you actually have to defeat the big old brig that this guy comes back in as protection, which definitely wasn't what it was beforehand. So this brig is juicy and has a lot of health, so you have to damage him quite a bit. So don't expend your energy and all of that ammo on those two spider tanks, because you will have to deal with this big old brigo. He will be shooting you with a bunch of different stuff, but you do have to worry about the bombardment that comes down. When you see the red lights coming from the sky, that will instantly defeat you, and it is pretty consistent that he does that. So you will have to be moving around, bopping and moving with you and your guardians, trying not to shoot each other in the back with rockets. But once you defeat that brigo, that is the actual end of the mission. Clear out all the enemies, and the mission will end with you getting the nice schematic for this normal version, as well as in the legendary you just get another outbreak. But we are able to do the puzzles now that we completed this. You just gotta head back to Ada 1 for the normal version, get yourself the crafted version of the outbreak perfected, and we are able to enter this mission again to do the puzzles. But it is a pretty intricate mission with the time for sure. Like I said, you don't have much time to mess around in here with a bunch of different puzzles, especially on Legend, once it goes to only about 20 minutes for a run. Alright, so once you actually get your outbreak perfected, crafted from Ada, and get that nice red border weapon, you are able to enter the mission in a legendary and normal version, where you have to do some puzzles to get both the first perk as well as our intrinsic trait upgraded with the first ship schematic. So for the first ship schematic, I just did this in normal version because, like I said, the time is definitely a factor. So for the first puzzle, once you defeat all of the enemies in this open room right here, which was the tower entrance, if you will, the main section of the tower, there will be this little pad on the wall with some Siva symbols on it. You go up and interact on it, and it'll actually show you a picture of a symbol of Siva. There are 3 different runs around this little area right here that you have to shoot in a certain time to open up a wall at the very end in that open room after the little burning floor puzzle, which we will continue this puzzle for. But for this, like I said, look at that little pad, interact with it, shoot these symbols in the order that they come out in on that. So after you shoot the first one, you go back to the panel, see which one is the next one, go back out into the tower area, shoot that second one, and then you know the third one is the last one, so you just go to that and shoot it. But you do have to use the outbreak perfected to shoot this, just as a warning. Be careful for that, because I was trying without it and it wasn't working at first, so you definitely have to use the outbreak to shoot that. But after you do, it'll say sequence accepted, which we will use that at the very end. So like I said, once you activate that at the beginning and you go through the little puzzle with the floor that burns you, you come into this room right here, where there will be a bunch of different panels on the wall that you can interact with a bunch of different rooms that some of them have the blue light screen up, some of them don't. So you can see on this little monitor right here, there is a puzzle or a bunch of different areas with the rooms that you are going into, and it kind of gives you the solution of which one you go into. You can work it out for yourself, but I will just show you right here the pattern that you need to hit these buttons in to be able to get that first ship schematic, as well as our first upgraded intrinsic trait, which was the number 2. So right here, after you go to the panel, you will enter the room right to the left of it, go in, turn right, hit the one on the wall, turn straight around, hit the one on the opposite side of the wall. You then leave the room. Right to the right of that room, there is a second one. Hit that one, where we go back in, hit the back left corner, turn around, hit the back right corner, re-exit that little room, go all the way down basically to the end of that same row that you were on of rooms. There will be a panel. Once you interact with that one, it'll actually give you that second intrinsic trait for the outbreak, as well as that first schematic for our ship. So that is our first puzzle that we have right here to upgrade the outbreak as well as our ship. The second one will be in legendary version, so I will throw that out. You have to be a little cautious of that because it is for the updated perk. There is a couple steps to do it. So the first step is to collect some Siva fragments by defeating Fallen on the Cosmodrome. For me, I just went into a lost sector way back here in the Cosmodrome with Shah Han. One single clear of this lost sector gave me all 20 of those fragments that I needed, which then upgraded my quest to the second part, which was to go into the legendary version of 0 Hour and activate the first 2 switches for that upgraded trait, which inside of the legendary mission, there's a different path that you go. Instead of jumping around the tower like we did, going under the ship, there is a different little section that you have to go to, which is this side right here. You go underneath inside of the right hand side of the room where the ship is actually, and we make our way through this little area to an open area with a bridge that has a bunch of different switches around, which actually open up containers or lids to these silos up inside of the area inside the tower. Now, to get the catalyst inside of this room right here, we have to activate this switch that opens up the 3rd silo so we can continue to climb up, which is actually the route that you have to go anyways. But when you jump down, you can see where my teammate is shooting. We come over here, activate this switch right here is where that 3rd one will open up. If you want to orientate yourself where the switch is on the wall that we activate for that perk, which is part of that quest when activating the 2 switches, it is right to the left of that if you are looking at the switch. So once you activate that, you know that the 3rd one is open. Go to the wall, activate the switch right here that I am at, and it'll say perk switch is active, and you will have to make it in a certain amount of time to the next switch. So if you follow this path right here, you do have to be pretty quick, but you jump across the chasm through this around some pipes where you will see these little waterfall steps, if you will. You jump all the way up and you will see that nice big 3 silo with the door open. Jump up on top of the lid and then make your way up these little steps inside of the silo where you will go through a little gate or a little tunnel, and then right to the left inside of that room will be the 2nd switch, and you activate it right then and there. The quest will update and it'll say complete the legendary version. So easy peasy. Once you complete the legendary version, you are able to go back to Ada 1 and she will give you the ability to upgrade it with a rapid hit. So it is a little bit of a challenging thing to get done. Definitely grapple can be nice to get yourself up a little bit quicker, things like that if you're good with a sword. But the intrinsic right here, or I should say the perk that you get for it, is rapid hit. There's going to be different puzzles, assuming it'll just be finding different switches throughout this part right here inside of the 0 Hour legend version, where we will have to activate them in a certain amount of time. But I am really looking forward to rewind rounds on this thing. It is going to be absolutely nasty, I think. So hopefully a little bit longer video than usual, but tried to cover literally everything from the normal version, the puzzles for our upgrade in the intrinsic side of it, as well as the upgrade for the ship and the upgrade that we get with the first perk on this bad boy instead of outlaw. So it is a beautiful, beautiful weapon, and we love this. It's going to be absolutely nutty, I think, with some changes that are coming in weapon archetypes with the final shape. So hopefully this helped. Again, I appreciate all you guys. I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.